By the end of this video, you will be able to make a simple spawner system. Let's get started. So first of all, let's make a spawner game object in our hierarchy. So right click and click on create empty and then go to the inspector, rename it as spawner and reset its transform. Now let's make a spawner system script by writing spawner code and clicking on create and add button. Now click on this script and open it in Visual Studio. In Visual Studio, first of all, let's just clean this code up and then write public float spawn rate and private float next spawn time. I wrote this as private to not show this in the inspector, but when we write it as public, it is shown in the inspector. Let's set it back to private. Now in the update function, write if next spawn time is less than time.time. Here time.time is basically there to count time that has gone since we have started the game. So let's remove this comment and in curly bracket write debug.log enemy is spawned. And next spawn time is equal to time.time plus spawn rate. Now save this. Make our spawn rate as 3 and when we play the game, you'll see enemy is printed every 3 seconds. Now what's going on here is that we have set our spawn rate as 3 and in the beginning the next spawn time will be 0. So in the if statement, next spawn time is 0 and time.time is 1. Whenever time.time is greater than next spawn time, this code is printed. And then next spawn time will be equal to time.time plus spawn rate, which is 1 plus 3, which is equal to 4. Now in the if statement, next spawn time is 4 and time.time, which keeps on increasing, and when it gets bigger than 4, which is 5, and it will print this enemy is spawned again, and then this will be 5 plus 3, which is 8. And by this you can see that it prints enemy is spawned like every 3 seconds, which is the basic gist of this code. But we don't want to print something in the console, instead we want to spawn this enemy object. So to do that, we have to make it into a prefab. Drag and drop our enemy to the project panel and delete it from hierarchy. In Visual Studio, write public game object enemy, which is going to be our reference for the enemy. And now drag this enemy in the inspector and in the update function write instantiate enemy, new vector 3, and we need to know where we have to spawn our enemy, so drag and drop it to the hierarchy again, and we want to spawn it above our camera view. This square you see here is going to be our camera view, so drag it above the camera view and see the y-axis in the transform component, copy that y-axis, and now in Visual Studio put that y value and keep x and z to 0. And write quaternion.identity. This will spawn our enemy without having any rotation. Now go back to Unity and delete this triangle, and when you play the game you will see it spawning one enemy, which is our rectangle, every second. Now bring back this rectangle and let's set it up to spawn at a certain side so that player can avoid it. To do that, let's create an empty object and rename it as rectangular parent 1. And then make its x-axis to 0 and y-axis to 6, which is above our camera screen. Let's give it a gizmo from here and let's put our rectangle enemy next to our rectangle parent. In the hierarchy, drag the rectangle enemy and make it a child of our rectangle parent. Now go to the rectangle enemy and remove obstacle script from it and add that obstacle script to the rectangle parent. Now drag and drop the rectangle parent to our project panel to make it another prefab. And drag this rectangular prefab and make it a square, rename it as square and drop it to the project panel to make another prefab. Now make as many prefab as you want to. Now we are going to randomly spawn all of these, so go to Visual Studio, put square bracket in front of our enemy game object to make it an array. Now to spawn random objects, we need to have random values, so in the update function inside if statement, write int random is equal to random.range from 0, enemy.length. Here enemy.length means the total number of enemy object there will be. Now put a square bracket here and write random inside it. Now in the size, write the number of objects you have and drag and drop the prefab in the empty space. And when you play, you will see, let's do it. You will see random objects falling every 3 seconds. You can make more than one prefab and add it just by increasing the size of this list. -3, which I'll make 4 now. And now you have a fully working spawner script. If you want to spawn the player as well, then make it a prefab, make a reference of it in the Visual Studio, instantiate it with some value of y in the start function, and now when you play the game, you'll see everything is spawned perfectly. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.